Well, hello again to another fabulous week with the Crotchety Old Men podcast. Hey, I'm Gary Smith. I'm one of the co-hosts, and today I got all my brothers in the studio with me, George Crumley and my main man PC. To both of y'all, as we say it in Detroit style, what up,
What
Joe?
up, Joe?
What's
How's
up, fellas?
everybody?
Shoot, as PC would say, ain't nothing to it but to do it, baby.
You already know. Exactly.
Yes, sir. So,
And you know what I always say, smiling is half the battle.
hey, that's it.
Right.
You're 10 toes down, baby. Shoot, if you don't have nothing to smile about after that, I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the day.
That's right.
Shoot. So let's get it cracking, man. What we talking about today?
Well, Smitty, a lot of stuff going on with this new administration, and one of the things that keeps circling around is this word tariffs. And I thought we'd kind of kick that around a little bit. I know I've been reading a lot about it, as well as you. And yeah, it's affecting Black folks, but overall, it's affecting everybody. And so I thought, it was something that we can maybe shed some light on, and just from our perspective, as we chop up different subjects, it might be somewhat appropriate for today. So you want to start off and kind of talk about what are tariffs?
All right. Well, tariffs is like a tax. I mean, it's a premium which you charge someone to provide a good or service, and something that chances are you don't make or produce yourself. And so it's an upcharge, if you will, a surcharge. And so from a country, I didn't pull up Webster's version. That's Gary Smith's version. I figure everybody should have a Webster dictionary on their
Or
phone
Google, right?
or Google. Right, right. So don't take my little opinion,
Right,
but that's what
right.
I call it. Upcharge. You understand? I relate it. Well, no, I'm not going to use that analogy. But anyway,
Oh man, come on now.
Well, Smitty, interesting enough, that's probably a better analogy for our audience because, these news programs, they want to all use all these technical terms, but like you say, it's an upcharge. And we know what an upcharge is. We grew
thank
up
you.
with upcharge, so we know what it
Right,
There you go.
right,
It's upcharge.
we
You
the
know,
crotchety old men. We we
right.
we
By
not the
far, we
we're not
already know.
we're somewhat scholars, but not scholarly. So
right. All right. Break it down simple. You get a sack, you break it up, and you charge extra for it when you break
Right,
it in pieces.
exactly.
So,
there you go.
And
all right.
to add to your analogy, the upcharge is to make sure we don't have an overpopulation of goods and services from other countries and allow our countries to produce the goods and services that supposedly is supposed to make things cheaper, but we know for sure that it does not do that.
Okay, so we classify that as theory, right?
Yeah, that's theory. I would say because when they
What's
say
theory? What
cheaper,
is theory?
Well, so the theory is okay. So take for example Canada. Okay, if I'm getting goods from Canada, I'm gonna give you an upcharge and say, okay, anything coming in from Canada, I'm gonna upcharge you. So therefore, us in America, we're not gonna want to pay that upcharge. So then we're gonna start producing it here in the United States. Therefore,
No, so
reducing the
so you're
amount
right.
of.
That's not theory. That's exactly how the tariffs work.
Yeah, but it's theory because in most cases, take for example the auto industry, they're not equipped to turn on a new assembly line or production just like that, So they're going to have to continue to pay that tariff until they can get up to speed and, produce those goods here in the United States. And who knows how long that's going to take.
And you don't think the auto
well,
That's
industry
why I say
there is up to
that's why I say
speed?
theory.
I mean, I
Hmm?
well,
mean,
no,
you got Ford Motor Company, for instance, started their production of autonomous cars long before anybody else did here in the United States. They
Yeah, but you haven't
transfer
heard.
that they transfer that business to Canada, to Mexico, and whatever, which is where most of the production for cars take place these days. They've been
well,
China's been putting together the Cadillac since 2007. And what's interesting about China and their tariffs, they don't get hit with a tariff for bringing the car back to the United States after they done assembled it in China, which I think is a travesty. Because you're gonna pay on your bill of sale, you're gonna see where you're paying for transportation of that car to get to where you are.
Well, PC, I think you struck a chord too in that the whole tariff concept started out of greed, I believe, because
I totally
we
agree
started
with that.
shifting all the jobs went to China and the jobs went to Mexico. So what do you expect? And so we done gotten hoodwinked and bamboozled over this word called cheaper. Okay,
Good point. Good
because
point.
the cheapness does not whittle down. It does not pass down to the consumer. Okay, it's the big margins. What it does is give corporate America bigger margins to go out and buy yachts and boats and child traffic. Okay, that's what it does versus having the daggone jobs here in America like it was in the good old days. Whereas that, heck, if you got something from anywhere in Asia, it was scrap or some garbage. That's what we looked at it at. Okay, and now because greedy shareholders want bigger margins. We want bigger dividends. We want the stock market to go up, 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 up without any correction. So now we find ourselves here where there's someone, at least, his way of going about it, sure, is double ass backwards. Okay. However, it's needed to be done. And yeah, it's going to be painful. Okay. Because we've been so accustomed to getting something cheaper. We've been so accustomed almost to getting something for nothing. And so, as Malcolm X would say, now the chickens have come home to roost.
Hello, cluck, 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 cluck,
I was
cluck.
going to say the same
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
absolutely right,
And,
Gary.
yeah. And for all those wondering, hell yeah, a recession is coming. Okay. Make no mistake about it. And it's not just because the eggs is high. A recession is coming because it's a necessity in order to correct the economic system as it is. So we got to go through that. And all
thing.
recessions are painful.
I don't necessarily agree with that because in the recession, who hurts? We hurt. Those
Everybody hurts.
billionaires, those
Everybody hurts,
billionaires,
George. Everybody hurts.
not them billionaires, they ain't hurting.
Well, that's the one
Well,
percent. I mean, you comparing the one
That number is
percent
more than
versus
1%. Well,
99%.
so why? Well, tell me. So why is it acceptable that the 1% don't suffer and then we gotta suffer? That doesn't make any sense. So back to what Smitty was saying. Yeah, it may be needed, the adjustment, but the adjustment does not have to be done in this manner. You can build up for this type of taking these things back, just like we pushed them out. All them carcasses of factories they got in Detroit that they closed up because they sent all that stuff overseas. You got to start building these things back up. Then you go to Canada and then you go to China and say, okay, we don't want as much. But to go to them and say we don't want as much and we're not prepared to produce it here and make us suffer paying a higher price until whenever they get up to speed to producing, that's, to me, that's not the way you do it. We hurt, not them billionaires.
okay. And when you say we, are you talking about we black folk, or are we talking about we as those who are in the 99 percentile?
Talking about everybody that get a 1099 or a W-2. You can put it however you can put other color you want on it. This is a class war, guys. This is not a black white issue. This is a class war. That's what this is. If you don't understand that by now, you need to read some more. This
So
class.
we
This
need
is
to put
about
we need to
class.
put change on our cupboards that keeps our gun oil. I guess is that what you're saying, George?
No, that ain't
Well,
what I
I
said.
agree that there's only one color, and that's green. And the only problem is that we don't participate in that to the extent that we should, and that's on us. Okay, and that's for another episode. But we stick to the tariffs as we're talking here. It's necessity. I agree with you, George. It's not about what you do; it's how you do it. And yeah, it's going about it wrong. And so, but what do you do? Because we can sit here for another hour and talk about the problem, but how do we navigate through this? What do we do? And it's going to be difficult for some and not as difficult for others. Because of the color green. Okay, not being prepared, not being ready for anything. Because every day there's something different, and just like the good times, there's always going to be some hard times. And so we've talked about it a lot on our podcast about preparation, being prepared. What was that old saying back in the day? They talk about save a dollar for a what, rainy day or what have you. Well, I'm not a proponent of saving for saving's sake. I am a strong proponent of investing for investors' sake because of the, of course, we all know what the results are of that. So, what are some of the solutions to this tariff thing that we
Well,
can do as people
yeah,
protect
yeah. I
ourselves?
mean,
Well,
yeah. So let's talk about.
I have a couple of suggestions. Number
Okay.
one, one of the impacts that the tariffs or the increase in tariffs is having today is the fact that we get 68% of our vegetables and fruits from Mexico. Okay, so if he's adding another 25% tariff to what they already have tariff to those fruits and vegetables, United States is already um, uh, suffering from food disparities as it is. Okay, so what we need to be doing is start thinking about urban farming on a large scale and just planting a garden in your own backyard. That way, you're not impacted by the food shortages, and not only that, but nutrition is another important thing. When you have these mass productions of food, nutrition goes out the window. They're not uh, moving the plants like they are to increase nutrition no value in the soil, and so as they mass produce them, nutrition goes out the window. As you begin to plant vegetables in your own garden, as you begin to plant vegetables in vacant lots in cities, then you begin to start feeding the nation. As far as the cars go, get a bike.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, PC, but here again, I'm gonna stick on this word theory. In theory, that makes sense.
Hmm. Continue. Uh oh.
Well, actually, George,
What
you
is
know
that?
what? It goes beyond theory because
Is that me?
It's been a proven fact that.
Well, you didn't let me
Uh,
finish. You didn't let me finish. You didn't let me
Go
finish.
ahead.
When I say theory, is because um, I'm a seasonal gardener. Okay, and see that's what it comes down to, being a seasonal gardener. Because if I'm living in Detroit, it's hard for me to grow any kind of vegetables during the winter. And I know you can try to grow things during the summer and harvest for the winter, but
Right.
that's a huge undertaking. Come on, from let's be serious about it. So, here again, that's something that takes time to cultivate, and time to learn, and time to do. I'm not saying don't do it, because I'm working on my garden right now. Every year I have a larger garden. I've just bought a 8x4 big old planter that I'm going to start to use so I can grow my stuff. So I'm right with you, brother.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and that little piece right that you got right there
but
produces a
yeah.
lot of food.
So it's three of us here. I got a garden. You guys got gardens?
I
No, I
got a
don't have a
garden on my
garden.
Okay, so
balcony,
that's what I'm
bro.
talking about.
I've got a garden on
Okay.
my
Mhm.
balcony.
All right. Two out of three.
All right.
We
Well, I'm
might
still.
let you have some food, Smitty.
You know what? I'm good at breaking in places. So hell, I'm going to get me. That's one thing I'm going to eat.
I
So
feel you.
I got surrounded by neighbors. Probably just like we got one out of three that don't have one. Well, two out of three got one. So matter of fact, I see some tomatoes over there. So yeah, I'm going. I ain't. I'm gonna make it. Well, I look at it like this: it get cold in Kansas, but yet and still they grow wheat. So
Yeah.
Kansas, Nebraska, and all that. But we grow enough wheat. We can supply our need of wheat. But what we do, we buy wheat from other countries. Okay, and
And
so
send
it's
our
been
wheat
said
to
that
other countries.
yeah, and the federal government's paid farmers for a long time not to farm, not to grow.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
so
Still
that
do.
and probably still do. So
They do.
there's solutions for all that. They can stop that nonsense.
Mhm.
All right, because every season there's a season coming, and
Mhm.
so nothing precludes that. What it is, these man-made excuses called bird flu and cow flu and all this other nonsense that's being laboratory made, in my opinion. Okay, because over the 74 years that I've been on Earth, I ain't never heard no daggone cow catching no bird flu or chicken catching bird flu. Okay, so our environment has changed, and some of the stuff that was said in one of the conferences I was with. Now, guarantee, now I'll do this little caveat here. Obviously, we have different ozones and environmental issues that's going on, but nobody should be dying from anything that they wasn't born with. Okay, and so to that statement I'm making there is that the food is, I think PC you mentioned to it a lot, is the root cause of a lot of the stuff that we're suffering from and dying from and all these ailments. So it's all tied in together by design. All right. And so, yeah, that big picture that takes away our attention or focus on what's really happening are the tariffs. Okay, and everybody's crying about the tariffs, but what's really going on is the thing that we need to really focus on about our food supply, about the gap in the wealth gap, and all that stuff ties into that. And so I think the tariffs is just a placebo to take our attention off of what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, and just to add to that, I used the word theory before, but the other word that I'm going to key on is uncertainty.
Yep.
Tariffs bring uncertainty. It brings uncertainty in the market. It brings uncertainty in business, and we started talking about that earlier as far as who is it affecting. Look, so if I'm a small business man, I'm not as nimble to be able to be flexible to adjust, when tariffs hit. Because now I've got to look at my inventory. Where am I getting things from? Am I importing things from China? Am I importing things from Mexico because it was cheaper? So how do I switch gears to get it from somewhere else? Considering the fact that I may only have 7 employees, so now I got to take that one employee that's doing X, Y, and Z and move him to try to find me other resources. So from a small business perspective, that's how we start to hurt. And whereas I'm a big business, I've got plenty of staff, plenty of money, stored away that I can be, more flexible and deal with these tariffs right on. But yeah, the small businessman is going to hurt first. Because of the fact that they're not as nimble, not as flexible when this uncertainty hits them.
I think the exact opposite. Here's why. With big corporations and stuff, you have this bureaucracy. In order to get something get agreement, you got so many levels of heads and stuff that got their own little opinions in it. By the time you come up on an agreement, hell, the opportunity doesn't pass. Whereas a smaller company is more nimble, in my opinion, because now you have fewer layers of bureaucracy. There's no fewer people that you got to answer to get something approved. So if we decided today as a small business that we're no longer going to do podcasts on an eclectic basis, talking about any and everything, we're going to switch to podcast and we're going to only talk about tariffs or only talk about business, we can do that overnight. Versus some of these bigger companies that have shows or Paramounts and all that kind of stuff, they got to get the approval of stockholders. They got to get the approval of U.S. regulators and stuff like that. We don't have to get nobody's approval. So to that end, I think we do have an opportunity where we can pivot on a dime if you have a small business. All right. And without all that bureaucracy, especially private businesses, because private business, you don't have to report earnings, you don't have to report squat. All right. And so you can make those decisions.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I guess from my perspective, if I'm a large company, most of these things that I'm importing from, wherever, I've got somewhat of an inventory. Whereas in a small business, because I'm working under smaller profit margins, I'm not able to keep maybe 90, 180 days worth of inventory out there to make my items. So I've got a shorter window, a smaller window to be able to grab those things that I may have in the warehouse if I have a warehouse, if I'm big enough to even have a warehouse. So those are kind of things that small businesses have to look at.
Okay, now here's a quick small business 101. When it comes to margins, small businesses have much larger margins than large corporations, much larger. You'll find 20, 40, sometimes 50% margins in a small businesses than you will in a corporate business. Majority of businesses over $50 million, their margins are slim, very slim. Google it. Don't take my word for it. Please don't anybody take my word for it. I want you to do the research on your own. But seriously, no, smaller businesses have much larger margins. Okay. And that's one of the reasons I believe, again, I'm about to get off into another subject that's coming up on another episode. But that's why I preach, folks, y'all got to get you a small business because you'll have more control, more autonomy. And yes, those margins are big. The mom and pop businesses between $500,000 in earnings or less, that's what runs America.
Exactly.
Those small,
You're
small
absolutely right,
businesses,
Gary.
those small businesses, man. And I'm going to have to step over there on the other side. There's a silver tsunami coming. There are 70 million baby boomers, those born between 1946 and 1964. Out of those 70 million, about less than 10%, roughly about 9 or 8.5%. That leaves about 7 million businesses that's owned by people, baby boomers. That's a transformation of wealth that's coming because they have people or kids or siblings who do not want to have any parts of the business. They don't want to work. They want to go over here and knock on somebody else's door for a job. And so with those small businesses, a lot of money out there, you guys. And so, and that's a heck of a lot of potential. And those margins have put people to school and all that other stuff. So I don't want to just be, long-winded with this. But yeah, it's something that we need to get educate ourselves more on because if we did, more of us would have our own business. And that's where we are. That's where we are at a disadvantage of because you have more control. You have no control over your income at a job. So yeah, those people who are in positions or in these jobs, first of all, the uncertainty, like you said, George, is real. There are so many people living in fear, and so when I see that fear mantra, whether it's the Wall Street Journal, Black Enterprise, or the comic section, it's all about fear. And anytime that noise is ringing loud and clear about you concerned about the uncertainty, then yeah, you need to be what you say, George. You need to read some more books or need to do some other
Right,
studying.
right,
Man,
right,
you got
right.
to weed out that noise because when it kind of got you upset, oh Lord, how I'm going to make an omelet because the eggs are so high and all this other stuff. Oh, gas is going up or whatever people are afraid of. That's when you have to start, locking in.
Hmm.
Remove the noise because
Hmm.
that's what it is. There's something to distract you. Do not
Oh,
be.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And God said it over and over and over and over and over again from Genesis to Revelation. Fear not. And I don't get biblical on it, but there's many times throughout all this stuff, and I talked about recessions, it's necessity because out of recessions and depressions, businesses have grown. Okay. And we don't have to sit back on our butts waiting for the next Bill Gates or whoever the hell else came out of that last other recession prior to us. But there's going to be some wealth generated out of this recession that's coming, or call it it don't have to be a recession, it can be a depression. But when that market goes down, it's nothing but opportunity. And so that's what we have to be prepared for. And that's what we need to be looking for and not being scared because there's no lion in the street. There's opportunity for us, all of us, if we know where to look and how to go about it.
My man. Well said, Smitty.
Just fact, not my opinion this
Right,
time. Fact.
right.
And I mean, all you got to do is George, Google it. You'll see. You'll see factually. History has shown us this. Most businesses, most ideas, even are birthed out of bad times, not good times.
No, yeah, I mean you're tracking right, Smitty, and it's all in the mindset. You have to
Yeah.
act and react to what's going on around you. You can't just not do that because of the fact that you're right. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and when you're uncertain whether you're getting a 1099 or a W-2, you have to do something yourself to fortify yourself and your family to make sure you can remove that uncertainty. You got to control what's in your area of being controlled. You don't worry about the stuff that's out of your control. And as long
Right.
as you can control the stuff that's in your preview to control, that's the way you set your mind on the right road to go down. But to do nothing is the wrong steps to
Approach.
take. You can't just sit back and yeah, it's the wrong approach. You can't just do nothing. There's a lot of things going around. You got to have the information and you got to do something.
Interesting analogy here. Right now I look at it like it's a pot of boiling water. And we all know the frog theory that if it's a pot of cool water, the frog is all comfortable and stuff and everything. And you can turn that heat up ever so slightly. And before you know it, the frog is cooked. All right. And that's where I see this now, because with all the gimme programs and the setbacks, cutbacks, and the DEI and all this other stuff that, we're going to give you this little, get you a minority enterprise designation, and we're going to give you a little something, something, something. That's that cool water. But slowly they're turning up that heat. Okay. And so in a pot of boiling water, when the water gets hot, you can put a potato in that same boiling water and that potato gets soft. But if you put an egg in that same boiling water, that egg is going to get hard. So whether you're an egg or a potato, okay, you need to pay attention to the temperature of what's going on, because it's going to make a difference. Again, that's a fact.
Yeah, yeah,
That is a
yeah.
fact.
Great
That
analogy.
is a fact.
Great analogy.
Yes. So we have to pay attention.
Yeah, we have to pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. Like I said, to do nothing is not the right approach, and to keep doing what you're doing.
Say it. Go ahead, say it.
Yes,
And expecting things different. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's the definition of insanity. Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's insanity.
Right.
And we can't
Spending
do
your
that.
money the same daggone way that you spent it 10, 15, 20 years ago. Okay, doing all that same dumb stuff that you did 10 or 15 years ago and expecting things, you think you're going to be rich. That dog don't hunt or even well off, okay, or wealthy, whatever words you want to attach to being good, okay, it's not going to work, okay. Keep reading the comic books and the daily horse race, whatever the hell people read other than something worthwhile, okay, to entertain themselves. Keep doing it. Keep on doing it, okay. You're going to be in that long line. An empty cup. I ain't gonna be in that line with the cup because I got neighbors. I got two farmers,
You got
right?
neighbors.
I'm gonna eat.
You gonna eat, huh?
Yeah, shoot. I'm gonna exchange some knowledge for some beans. Okay, I'm gonna exchange something for some greens or whatever. But the barter system, we gonna eat, man.
The barter system. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, switching it back to what we started with as far as tariffs, as we can see that it's wide ranging as far as what it's going to impact. And I think we all somewhat agree that, the approach that our current administration is taking is somewhat a theory, and what it's causing in our neighborhoods and in our own households is uncertainty. So we've got to figure out a way to deal with these things and, make it right for ourselves and make it all right for our families. The world's not going to end today or tomorrow, but we got to continue to prepare ourselves and continue to be nimble and flexible, like we've talked about these businesses, even in our family. We have to run our family like a business. We got to make the right decisions and do what's right for our family. And that's something that I've definitely started, a couple months ago. Asking the right questions, making the right moves with, from financial perspective, not just sitting back watching and looking. If you're not looking at your portfolio, you better look at it now. And there may be some adjustments. There's different things that in times like this, like you said, people move out and to get into different things like are more stable. You got T-bills, you got gold. And I'm not recommending that you do any of these things, but I'm just saying that there's a variety of things that you can switch to that will make things a lot less volatile as they do prepare on the report on the news on a day-to-day basis. So you need to investigate and see what's up. What makes, as we always say, what's going to allow you to sleep comfortably at night.
That's right. Sleep well at night. Because there's some corporate refugees out there. I hope y'all listening to us. What I mean when I say corporate refugees, those who have been cut. A lot of the cuts coming up at the top now. Okay, it used to be the lower rim of employees that were getting laid off or whatever. But no, you're not seeing any more management. You got so much management, mid-managers, a manager who's a manager to the manager. They're getting rid of all that fat. Okay, and that's why you see this extreme action being taken by the DOGE, the Department of Government, Expense or whatever the acronym is. But there's a lot of them being in the street now. They got these fat 401ks. Some of them are not as fat. Okay, and those are the one who is really concerned about the uncertainties. But even those who have nice, healthy 401ks, the most salient question on their mind is what's next. Okay, because their factual history has shown them that their next job or next position may not be as cushy as that last one. Okay, and so now you're competing with AI as well as young talent that's coming into the marketplace. So
I
they
was
have
just
some serious things. Go ahead. I mean,
Yeah, I
PC.
was just about to say, or not at all, Gary, because
Yeah.
like you say, you got AI. They're putting AI and mechanical things. You got mechanic mechanisms on the lines of production that are creating and taking away jobs from people. So, we have to pay attention to all of that, and furthermore, we have to pay attention to the things not being said, like the both of you mentioned before. There is one thing to hear what people are saying. It's an altogether different thing when you hear what people aren't saying. And that's the heart of communication. Okay. And when you have a guy like Trump who's doing this and putting DIA out here, trying to get all the blacks out the military, da 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 da, what is he really trying to do in the background? And that's a whole nother issue that we all really need to pay attention to, because that's what's going to really affect us most.
You know what? And I'm going to be just brief with this. That's just a slap back from when all we wanted to have General Grant's statues torn down. So all the
Right, right,
Confederate
exactly.
flags, we do all that. Well, we got to take them off the campuses and stuff. So we're tearing down, dismantling their history. And so they're going to teach their children the same daggone slave master racist history that those statues represented. So now that they've taken down ours, okay, as such as the DEI, whatever the hell it is, and stuff like that. So now we all up in a roar. Oh, they want black people out. They don't give a good hot chocolate about your chocolate butt. Okay, but you started it. All right, you wanted them. You wanted to erase your history. So yeah, they're gonna take our history out of the schools or whatever. Who gives a crap? Because history, period, or whatever, should start in the home. Okay,
True.
period. You don't send your kid to school to learn that Martin Luther King was black and he had a dream, or Sojourner Truth was a pioneer female, or Madam C.J. Walker was the first black female. I mean, first female millionaire. Period. You don't need some white guy to teach you that. That should begin at home. All right. So if you've got a parent that don't know their history, who didn't get their history from their parent, then on and on and on, just like we say, well, we weren't taught. Yeah, there's some things that that's not taught, they're caught. Okay? So we need to stop using it as an excuse too. So get out of our own way. These tariffs are going to be here. Nothing lasts forever. So he's going to walk back on some of those tariffs. He already has, because he sees
Yeah.
the ignorance that's coming and feeling the heat. Okay, from those that's in the 1%, who's like George said, wait a minute, you're doing this thing but backwards. Come on, man. What you're doing may have some, relevance, but doggone. Prepare to do it before you just go out here and say, I'm going to charge Canada 25%. I'm going to charge. You woke up one morning. Now it's down to 10, then it go to 15. You don't know where the hell he wants to land.
It's that uncertainty.
That's that uncertainty. So uncertainty starts at the top. We can see that. We see that if we're paying attention.
Yeah,
All
there's a
right.
playbook. There is definitely a playbook.
Absolutely. And absolutely. And, but, all right. Well, we come to that hour where I guess our parting thoughts have to come together and stuff like that. PC, are you ready?
I'm ready like ready, baby.
All right, what you got?
Today's affirmation is breathe. And this is how it goes. No matter the giant temper tantrums and the universal arguments of disrespect, greed, and hate, we are living in a time of bursting light filled with love and grace. Hold your holy ground.
Amen.
All
Somebody
right.
say amen to that. One of my favorite entrepreneurs, Reverend Bill Winston. That's one of his favorite sayings. Somebody say amen to that.
There you go. There you
All
go.
right.
And as we always say on the Crotchet Old Men, if you didn't know, now you
Now
know.
Now
you
you
know.
know.
Take
All
care.
right. Take
Peace
care.
out.
Peace.